Hey there, deep divers. Imagine waking up one morning and your brand, the one you've poured your heart and soul into, has just become irrelevant.
Whoa.
Scary thought, right?
Yeah.
That's the nightmare we're diving into today.
Okay.
As we explore when branding goes wrong, lessons for SMBs, we'll figure out how to avoid becoming a cautionary tale.
I like it.
Get ready for some serious aha moments.
That's a powerful image and a very real fear for a lot of businesses. We often hear about big brands fading away, like Kodak,
Right.
but this can happen to anyone, especially in today's fast-paced market.
And that's what this article really drives home. It makes it
Yep.
clear that branding isn't just for the big guys, the Fortune 500s.
Right.
It's the lifeblood of any business, big or small. But it's so much more than just like slapping a logo on something, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's about creating a lasting impression.
Absolutely. Think of it as the personality of your business.
Yeah.
It's how you communicate your values and your promises to customers and what makes you unique.
So if I walk into a local bakery, it's not just about the delicious smell of bread,
Oh.
right? It's about the feeling I get from the staff, the story they tell about, their local ingredients, the overall experience.
You hit the nail on the head. That whole experience is what builds trust and loyalty. Successful brands tap into the psychology of their customers. They create these emotional connections that go way beyond just the product itself.
Yeah, and that's what I find so fascinating about branding.
Hmm.
It's like this subtle art form. This article even calls it a psychological tool. Now, to be clear, we're not talking about manipulation.
No, not at all. It's not about tricking anyone. It's about understanding how people make decisions and using that knowledge to build genuine connections. Think about brands that evoke nostalgia. Like a vintage soda brand that reminds you of your childhood. They're tapping into powerful emotions to build a sense of familiarity and trust.
Oh, or how about those brands that make you feel like you're part of an exclusive club? They carefully craft their messaging and imagery to appeal to a specific group,
Yeah.
make their customers feel like they belong.
Exactly. And that sense of belonging is incredibly powerful in building brand loyalty. It's about making people feel seen and understood.
This article touches on how branding has evolved over time.
Yeah.
But with the rise of digital platforms and social media, it feels like the game has completely changed. What used to take years to build can now happen overnight.
But for better or worse.
Right, exactly. For better or worse.
Yeah, that's the double-edged sword of the digital age. It's accelerated the pace of everything. You can connect with a wider audience faster than ever before, but that also means mistakes can spread like wildfire.
Which brings us to that photography giant I mentioned earlier. The one that stumbled despite being a household name. Kodak.
Kodak's story is a classic example of a company failing to adapt to change. They actually invented the first digital camera back in 1975, but hesitated to fully embrace the technology.
That's almost hard to believe, right?
Mm-mm.
They created the very thing that would disrupt their entire industry.
It happens. They were so focused on protecting their existing film business, which was still incredibly profitable at the time.
Yeah.
It's understandable to be hesitant about disrupting your own success, but what they missed was that consumer behavior was shifting,
Right.
and the market was moving towards digital regardless.
So while Kodak was clinging to the past, competitors like Canon and Sony saw the opportunity and they capitalized on it.
Mm-hmm.
They invested heavily in digital butter, innovated quickly, and started to own the market.
And Kodak, despite its legacy and brand recognition, started to look outdated. They were perceived as slow to adapt and out of touch with the changing needs of photographers.
It's a tough lesson for all of us.
Yeah.
Even the biggest brands can become irrelevant if they fail to stay agile and adapt to market shifts.
Absolutely. You have to be willing to cannibalize your own success to disrupt yourself before someone else does. It's about recognizing when the market is shifting and having the courage to evolve with it.
Now, putting myself in Kodak's shoes, it makes you wonder, could they have done anything differently? What if they had gradually introduced digital while still supporting their film products? Could they have stayed relevant by appealing to both markets?
That's a fascinating question. It's hard to say for sure what the right move would have been, but it highlights the importance of strategic planning and being willing to experiment.
That's such a good point. It's easy to see Kodak's mistakes in hindsight. But the reality is that many businesses face similar challenges. How do you balance protecting your current success with adapting to new trends? It's a tightrope walk.
You've got it. And to make matters even more complex, you have social media amplifying every decision a company makes.
Oh, social media. The article really emphasizes how it's a whole other beast when it comes to branding. It's like a constant spotlight, right? You can't hide anything.
Exactly. And that brings its own set of challenges and opportunities. It's not just about having a catchy tagline or a pretty logo anymore. It's about authenticity and transparency.
Okay, but is authenticity just another marketing buzzword? How can brands be genuinely authentic in a world where everything feels so calculated and staged?
That's a valid point. It's a difficult balance to strike, but I think consumers are savvy enough to spot a fake. The brands that truly resonate on social media are the ones that share their values, engage in real conversations, and aren't afraid to show their human side.
So it's about building real relationships with your audience rather than just broadcasting a message.
Precisely. And that's something every business, big or small, can focus on. Think about your own online presence. Are you being genuine? Are you connecting with people on a personal level?
It's a good reminder for all of us, even if we're not running a Fortune 500 company. We all have a personal brand, and it's important to be intentional about how we cultivate it online.
I completely agree. It's about thinking strategically about how you present yourself and the message you want to convey to the world.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation already. We've gone from the psychology of branding to the rise and fall of giants like Kodak, and now we're exploring the complexities of social media.
It's amazing how much ground we've covered.
It is.
It's a testament to how dynamic and multifaceted branding is in today's world, and we've only just scratched the surface.
Okay, but before we jump into what the future holds, let's take a closer look at some other branding blunders.
Okay.
The article mentions New Coke and that infamous Gap logo redesign. Can you refresh my memory on that?
Oh, those are classics. New Coke was a total disaster. They tried to change their iconic formula, and people revolted. It was a stark reminder that even the most beloved brands have to be incredibly careful about messing with what people love.
It's like they underestimated the emotional connection people had with their product. People felt like their memories and traditions were being tampered with.
Exactly. And the Gap logo. That was another case of not respecting the brand's heritage. They tried to modernize their logo, but it felt generic and disconnected from their established image. The backlash was immediate and intense.
It just goes to show that strong brand recognition can be both a blessing and a curse. You have to be mindful of how people perceive your brand and make changes carefully and strategically.
You've hit on a critical point. Respecting your audience is paramount. You have to understand their connection to your brand and approach changes with sensitivity.
This is all starting to feel a bit overwhelming. What happens if, despite our best efforts, we make a misstep? Is there any coming back from a branding blunder?
That's where the article's three-step recovery process comes in. Acknowledge, engage, and adapt. It's a framework for turning a negative experience into a learning opportunity.
Okay, I'm ready to dive into that. Tell me more about how these steps work in practice.
Let's start with acknowledge.
Okay, so acknowledge, it sounds simple enough, but what does that look like when a brand messes up?
Well, it means owning up to the mistake,
Okay.
publicly and sincerely.
Really?
Yeah, no hiding, no downplaying,
So no trying to spin it?
no spin. Transparency is key.
Gotcha.
Trying to sweep it under the rug or ignore the problem will just make things worse.
Yeah, it's like ripping off a Band-Aid. The longer you wait, the more it hurts.
Exactly. Address it head on and move on.
Okay, so you acknowledge the mistake, what then?
That act of acknowledging the issue shows your audience that you respect them enough to be honest with them.
Right.
It's the first step in rebuilding trust.
Okay, step 2, engage. What does that entail?
This is where you open up those lines of communication. Listen to your audience's feedback, respond to their concerns, and show that you're taking their input seriously.
So you got to prove you're listening.
Yeah, social media can be an invaluable tool for this, but don't limit yourself. Use other channels like email or even direct phone calls to connect on a more personal level.
So it's not just about saying sorry. It's about actually listening and responding to what your audience has to say.
It's about turning a potentially negative situation into an opportunity to strengthen your relationship with your audience.
And finally, step 3, adapt.
This is where the real learning and growth come in.
Okay.
Every misstep, no matter how big or small, offers a chance to reflect, learn, and evolve.
So it's not about dwelling on the mistake, but using it as a learning opportunity.
Exactly. Analyze what went wrong, understand why it happened, and adjust your strategy accordingly. Maybe you need to refine your messaging, rethink your target audience, or even revamp your entire brand strategy.
It's about turning a negative experience into a positive one by using it as fuel for growth.
Exactly. And remember, adaptability is key in today's ever-changing world. The brands that thrive are the ones that are willing to evolve and adjust their strategies as needed.
So we've talked about how companies can recover from these branding blunders, but what about personal branding? We all have a personal brand whether we realize it or not.
That's a great point.
How can we apply these same principles to our own lives?
Personal branding is just as important as corporate branding. Think about it. We're all constantly building and shaping our personal brands through our interactions online and offline.
I guess so.
Yeah,
So it's about being mindful of how we present ourselves and the image we project to the world.
absolutely. Think about your values, your skills, your experience, and the message you want to convey.
It's like creating our own brand story,
Uh-huh.
highlighting what makes us unique and valuable.
Exactly. And just like with businesses, authenticity is key. People can sense when someone is being genuine, and that's what builds trust and connection.
I've noticed that people who try too hard to be someone they're not often come across as inauthentic and untrustworthy.
It's like you can see right through them.
Exactly. So being genuine and true to yourself is essential for building a strong personal brand.
I couldn't agree more. And just as companies need to adapt to changing market conditions, we as individuals need to be adaptable as well.
So we need to be open to learning new skills, exploring new opportunities, and adjusting our approach as needed.
The world is changing faster than ever, and those who are able to adapt and evolve will be the ones who thrive.
So it's not enough to just build a personal brand. We have to constantly nurture and evolve it over time.
It's a lifelong journey, but it's a journey worth taking because a strong personal brand can open doors, create opportunities, and help you achieve your goals.
It's like having a superpower. It gives you an edge in a competitive world.
You got it.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. We've gone from dissecting corporate branding blunders to exploring the power of personal branding.
It's amazing how interconnected these concepts are.
Yeah, it really is.
It's all about communication, connection, and building relationships. Whether you're a multinational corporation or an individual, these principles are universal.
Speaking of the future, let's jump back into the article and explore that glimpse into the world of VR, AR, and AI. This part of the article really captivated me. It feels like we're on the cusp of a major transformation in how brands connect with consumers.
It's an incredibly exciting time for branding. These technologies have the potential to revolutionize the way we experience brands.
Okay, break it down for me. Let's start with VR. How could something like VR be used in branding? It seems so futuristic and expensive.
You'd be surprised how accessible VR is becoming. Imagine being able to step inside a brand's world virtually. Instead of just seeing a product image online, you could put on a VR headset and experience it firsthand.
Oh, wow. I can see how that would be incredibly immersive. You could walk through a virtual store, interact with products, even customize them to your liking.
Exactly, it's a whole new level of engagement. For example, imagine a furniture company creating a VR experience where you can design your own sofa, choosing the fabric, the color, the size, all in a virtual environment.
That would be amazing. No more guessing how that sofa will actually look in your living room.
Right, and for brands, it's an opportunity to create truly memorable experiences that foster deeper connections with consumers.
So VR is all about creating these immersive virtual experiences. What about AR? How does that fit into the picture?
Augmented reality overlays digital information onto the real world. Imagine pointing your phone at a product and seeing reviews, demos, or special offers pop up. It's like having a personal shopping assistant right in your pocket.
I can see how that would be incredibly useful for consumers. But how would a small business even begin to implement AR? It seems so complex and expensive.
It might seem that way, but AR technology is becoming increasingly accessible. There are platforms and tools designed specifically for small businesses to create their own AR experiences without needing a huge budget or technical expertise.
That's encouraging to hear. It's not just for the big players anymore.
Exactly, and the possibilities are endless. Imagine a local bakery creating an AR experience where you can point your phone at their storefront and see their daily specials pop up, complete with mouth-watering images and customer reviews.
That's brilliant. It's like bringing the digital and physical worlds together.
It's about enhancing the customer experience by bridging that gap.
Okay, so VR and AR are all about creating immersive experiences. But what about AI? I feel like that one is a bit more of a wild card.
AI is definitely the dark horse in this race. Think about it. AI can personalize the entire branding experience. Imagine brands gathering data on your preferences, past purchases, even your browsing history, and then using that information to tailor their marketing messages specifically to you.
So instead of seeing generic ads, I'd be seeing ads for products I actually might be interested in.
Precisely, and it could go even further. AI could create personalized product recommendations, curate content specifically for you, or even offer real-time customer service that's tailored to your needs.
It's like having a personal brand concierge.
Exactly. AI has the potential to make branding more relevant, more engaging, and more personalized than ever before.
While that sounds amazing, I can't help but think about the potential downsides. What about privacy concerns And how can we ensure that AI is used ethically and responsibly when it comes to branding?
Those are valid concerns. It's
Hmm.
crucial to be mindful of the ethical implications of AI and to ensure that it's used in a way that benefits both brands and consumers. Transparency and user control over data are key.
It's definitely a conversation that needs to happen as these technologies become more prevalent. We need to be aware of the potential risks and work towards solutions that protect consumers.
I completely agree. It's a responsibility that falls on all of us, brands, developers, and consumers alike.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, from the basic principles of branding to the mind-blowing possibilities of the future.
It has been quite a journey.
It has, and I think the biggest takeaway is that branding is a constantly evolving landscape. What worked yesterday might not work today, and what works today might not work tomorrow.
Exactly. The key is to be adaptable, to stay curious, and to always be willing to learn and grow.
And that applies to both businesses and individuals. We all need to embrace a mindset of continuous learning and growth to stay ahead of the curve.
Absolutely. The world is full of opportunities, but we need to be prepared to embrace change and adapt to new challenges.
And remember the story of Kodak. It's a cautionary tale, but it's also a reminder that even the biggest brands can stumble. It's up to each of us to stay vigilant, to keep learning, and to be willing to disrupt ourselves before someone else does.
Well said. It's about being proactive and anticipating change rather than reacting to it.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder those possibilities. Join us next time as we delve even deeper into the future of branding and explore how you can position yourself for success in this exciting and ever-changing world.
Wow, it feels like we've taken a crash course in Branding 101 today. We've covered so much ground,
We have.
from the psychology of branding to the rise and fall of iconic companies like Kodak, and now we're peering into the future with VR, AR, AI.
It's been quite a journey.
It has been.
And I really hope our listeners are feeling inspired to think differently about their own brands, whether it's their business or their personal brand.
I know, I am. I'm already thinking about how I can incorporate some of these ideas into my own online presence.
That's the spirit. It's all about continuous learning and growth, right? It's exactly. Speaking of growth, let's wrap up our deep dive with one final takeaway from the article. It's about the importance of agility and adaptability, especially in today's rapidly evolving world.
Agility and adaptability are essential for survival in any field, but especially in the world of branding.
The article really emphasizes that businesses need to be willing to disrupt themselves before someone else does. It's a scary thought, but it's also a powerful reminder that we can't afford to be complacent.
We have to be proactive and anticipate change rather than reacting to it.
But how can businesses actually foster these qualities of agility and adaptability? It's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to actually do it.
That's a great question. I think it starts with creating a culture of experimentation. Encourage your team to try new things, to take risks, and to not be afraid to fail.
So it's about embracing a growth mindset where failure is seen as an opportunity to learn and improve.
Exactly. Failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of the process.
And I think it's also important to stay informed about industry trends and emerging technologies.
Absolutely. You need to have your finger on the pulse of what's happening so you can anticipate changes and adapt accordingly.
It's like being a trendsetter rather than a trend follower.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to seek out external perspectives. Bring in consultants or experts who can offer fresh insights and challenge your assumptions.
Yeah, it's easy to get stuck in our own echo chambers, so getting an outside perspective can be incredibly valuable.
I couldn't agree more. And finally, I think it's important to be willing to pivot. If something isn't working, don't be afraid to change course, even if it means scrapping a project or going back to the drawing board.
It's about being flexible and responsive to feedback and making adjustments as needed.
Precisely, agility and adaptability are not about being perfect. They're about being willing to learn, evolve, and improve.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of the power of branding.
It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you and with our listeners.
And remember, folks, branding is not just for businesses, it's for all of us.
That's right.
We're all building our own personal brands, whether we realize it or not.
So be mindful of the image you're projecting to the world. Cultivate your personal brand and always be striving to learn and grow.
On that note, we'll leave you to ponder these possibilities. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of branding. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.